No Jumper, coolest podcast in the world, and today we got the one and only MixedByAli on here.
What's going on, brother?
It's a moment.
It's a very big moment. Thank you for having me, man. I've been watching the show for so many years, man. Thank you for having me.
Wow, really? That's very exciting.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of producers on here, but I don't think we've ever touched the engineers of the world.
Right. It's a new day. You know what I'm saying? That's why we're here, is to shed light on those people completing that trifecta and creating a record.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I think that it's very important that the kids out there know that there are a lot of different ways that they can make a living out of the music business aside from just being the rapper. Because a lot of people are out here trying to be a rapper, and they should not be trying to be a rapper.
That's a fact, man. I mean, that's one of the goals. I tried rapping, it wasn't it. I tried producing. I do produce at times, but you know, my passion really lies with taking parts apart and, you know, just bringing them back together, adding different elements and stuff like that. So it's more of like the creation, building process that I love the most about it.
Interesting. Okay, so take us back to the early days. You were born where?
Gardena, California, born and raised. 1989, went to Gardena High, you know what I'm saying, product of Gardena.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how would you describe the upbringing over there? I've been to the skate park over there a few times. I don't know if I got the full picture. Yeah,
Raleigh. I mean, it's decent. I mean, Gardena, you know, it's a beautiful city, you know what I'm saying, it has its ups and downs like any other city. But, you know, I think, you know, it really made me who I am, you know, just the school, the community, the homies, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
How were your parents?
Parents, so I was raised by my grandparents, so I'm half Polish and half Liberian.
Really?
So that was one different thing, that stigma of not being confident, because you go outside the house and it's all the homies look like this, but then you come home eating sauerkraut and, you know what I'm saying, dumplings and stuff, and it's like, okay, bet, like I gotta figure this out.
Damn, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So did you know your parents, or
Yeah,
what was that relationship
I knew
like?
my mom. You know, I had a relationship with my dad, but you know, it's average circumstances. You know what I'm saying? It's you know, they weren't able to really care for me, so my grandmother came in and kind of stepped in and took over.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was like a weird cultural difference from them, because this was the Polish side of your lineage.
Right. Very much so culture. They, you know, they escaped Poland to escape the war.
Wow.
So, you know, just their whole mind state of, you know, how they expected me to be raised, you know, it was more of, you know, hey, you're gonna be a doctor, you're gonna be a lawyer. But then I'm leaving the house and they're not knowing this other side of like the people I'm hanging out with, and like, yo, like being a doctor and a lawyer is not in my future, you know? So just that context and contrast of, you know, just figuring out the identity of like who you really are, just growing up in the streets and having a home that you can't really relate to, you know what I'm saying?
And that is such an interesting idea of like a kid being raised by his grandparents, because there's like a whole generation missing there. A lot of times parents don't understand what their kids are going through, but with the grandparents, there's even an additional like 20, 30 years in there of them not really understanding what's going on.
Facts. Even just how they were raised, like, you know what I'm saying, escaping the war, like being in camps, you know what I'm saying, Stalin camps in like the early times of the war, like. So, you know, their perspective of life is completely different from, you know, somebody who's you know, growing up in the States.
100%.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, like, what was it like for you kind of going through this process of going from a kid to a man in LA? Like, you know, there's a lot of weird influences and pressure and stuff. It must have been quite tricky.
Pressure definitely was a way to put it. A lot of pressure. And again, just being a kid, you know, not confident in who he really is. So being influenced, you know what I'm saying, very fast on good and bad shit, you know. So it was a lot of like finding myself and understanding my comfortability level in just life, you know. Going through situations, failing at it. Okay, boom, that's not the route I want to go. Trying something else, falling in love with it, but still having to find a way to make money. Okay, bet, I like this, but let's still hit these streets and figure it out. You know, it's like a Rubik's Cube, you know, constantly trying to just find those colors that match.
Were you drawn to music from early on?
I think it was more the process of creating music. Like, you know, I didn't come from like a musically inclined family, you know, but it was the more like I was one of those ADHD kids that would like take a RC car apart just to see how it works.
Really?
Ends up breaking it. But
that's
you know,
a good sign right
you
there,
know what I'm saying?
For a kid.
Yeah. So, you know, from that, when I was able to really take a song apart and put it back together, I'm like, bet, like I found my shit.
Do you remember the first shit that you were listening to that really got you enamored with hip hop or music in general?
Man, it's crazy because, like, you know, growing up with my grandparents, you know, she definitely didn't listen to any rap or any pop music. It was, I listened to a lot of ABBA.
Really?
You know, our grandparents, she was driving down, taking me to middle school, elementary school, just blasting like ABBA and shit.
I'm not mad at that. I think that's a good influence.
It's fire. You know what I'm saying? It's a great way to start. But obviously, I'm influenced by the West Coast. You know, Pac, Dre, Snoop. Like that really was a soundtrack to like my early, you know, upbringing. And then my brother, you know, he was heavy into like import like Japanese cars and stuff. So you know, he was in the techno scene heavy. So I think, you know, subconsciously it kind of played a big part in how I create music. Just how
You had a lot of influences.
A lot of different textures.
A lot of kids might only hear rap or not really be exposed to that much shit. You had all this different eras sort of coming together. It's interesting.
So it was like a petri dish of just different things that I could sample or find inspiration from.
When I think about why I give a fuck about hip hop so much, I just think about being like 9 years old and hearing like the G-Funk sound on Doggy Style and the Chronic, etc. And that really turned me out. Like 100%. That was the whole thing of like, I don't know anything about this, but I know this is the best sounding thing I've ever heard.
It felt great, and that's my whole thing with just like the old school West Coast music. It's just like the feeling it had. And that just takes me to like just why I love what I do so much. Just seeing how like a Dre would make everything on Chronic just smack across every speaker system. Like what is like the mechanics behind that? What is the system or the process behind that? And being able to understand that and being able to work with Dre so I can see it firsthand, that shit was like boom, like I'm here. Like, you know what I'm saying? This is my calling,
100%. So were you curious about like what was going on with the production and shit from a young age, or how did you start to wade into like learning about all that stuff?
Man, it's funny because, high school at Gardena, I played football, obviously, but, there was this hustle. I'm always a hustler. I'm always finding a way to, like, figure some business shit out. And back in high school, like, I was the ringtone man, back when everybody had the Nextels, the 860s, and the Chirps.
Nice.
I figured out, again, because, my family was getting to computers, I was computer literate myself. So, I found programs where I can hack these phones and put real songs on them instead of just the beeping ringtones that were out at that time. So from that, I really had homies coming over and doing like 30-second parody ringtones, And then from that, the art of recording, I kind of fell in love with the art of recording through that. And then the 30-second ringtones ended up, recording full-length songs.
Right.
Yeah.
So how are you selling the ringtones?
Just word of mouth. Like, what I'm saying? Obviously, back in the day, it was no social media, really. It was just, it was really just homies talking to homie. And, obviously, I wasn't like, I had friends, what I'm saying? So being on the football team, the word spread, like, yo, you can go here. Have like a ringtone saying, don't answer this girl phone, or your mama calling me, go home. Just some type of parody ringtone, just on some funny shit.
Yeah.
And then again, like, just that, and homie was like, you could do this, let me record a song real quick. I got to turn the song into MySpace or whatever. So that's kind of where the love came from.
Did you have any like real hometown heroes, like anybody like that you knew as a young kid who was like having success in rap, or were you having to really figure a lot of this stuff out on your own?
I mean, in the early stages, it wasn't even like a thing to be like, yo, I'm like, this is what my career is gonna be. It was more of like a hobby to kind of keep my mind focused. It wasn't up until I really started recording full-length songs and really falling in love with the art. That's when I really started studying other engineers that, are black engineers, people that might look like me. I couldn't afford the music schools. I couldn't afford a lot of those things. So the internet, YouTube and forums were like the only things that I really had to my advantage to research. And like, I didn't even know it was a business. Like the recording arts, I didn't know it was a business. I just knew I liked putting audio parts together to create a final product.
Right.
So I was doing my research and, got better equipment, reached out to local talent, local artists that I knew were doing their thing, and had more hands-on experience by working with them, which I think kind of elevated just my skill at an early age.
It's funny because to the kids out there, if they wanted to get into what you do, it's got to be 10 times easier now, right?
1,000%.
You were figuring it out from scratch when there was not a fucking guidebook. It's still probably a challenging thing to learn, but you get to go to YouTube and type, "How do I do this?"
Exactly.
And there's going to be videos.
And I think it's more of a stigma thing because it's like it's back when I really was getting started, there was still that notion of you have to go by the book to become an audio engineer. You have to know your ones and zeros, and that's what really discouraged me in the early on. Because like, bro, like I'm not about to go to school. I couldn't afford it, and like I hated authority. Like you're not about to tell me how to do something when I could just figure it out. So now it's more of like there's no limitations to how songs are being created. So kind of just fucking throw it against the wall and see if it sticks.
But I'm sure you hear a lot of songs that you are like, that shit is mixed like shit. And whoever, like now that you are much more learned about like how shit is supposed to sound, you could probably look at a lot of the shit these young kids are doing and being like, holy fuck, I wish I had my hands on that record before it came out, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I tell people all the time, your music sounds like shit. Like that's one of my phrases, bro. Your music it's tight, but it sounds like shit. I think that's over these years becoming who I am in this field. I think that's been one of my main one of my main purposes is just like just making awareness of the problem. Like, people's music sounds like shit, but it can always be better. You know what I'm saying? Really trying to paint the picture of the problem so I could turn around and create that solution.
Right.
You know?
Do you Well, okay, I'm not going to skip ahead steps or anything, but okay, so you're getting interested in it. You start working with some local talent and stuff. I'm assuming none of that really like went anywhere, but you were building up your skill set to be able to be great at this, right?
Yeah. I mean, early on, I was doing, Tyga's mom and my auntie were good friends, so I did like all the early Tyga stuff. The
Really?
Young
Oh, so I'm assuming you're going to be just working with some guys who didn't blow up.
I mean,
That's
he
nuts.
wasn't. He was still, just a tatted up little kid, from the city. So, it was still nothing that I knew was ever going to take me anywhere.
Right.
But, through consistency and, work ethic, that shit, ultimately changes. But, again, just homies that, can write at 16 or homies from the hood that would just, just dissing whoever, I got a place to record. I always wanted that hands-on experience because I knew I couldn't afford the book experience.
Right.
So I figured, hard work is going to override talent. So, I got to just put that work in by doing the work.
It's interesting because do you feel like it was kind of a slow period for Los Angeles when you were coming out in terms of the music? Because I was thinking about that a lot recently when The Game said basically that like he held down the West Coast for like 10 plus years where there wasn't really a big rapper from LA, like up until I think YG came around. That was kind of like maybe the city didn't have the same confidence that you would feel from a lot of local people in the city now. Would you say that's accurate?
I think there was more of a paradigm shift, with the type of music that was being created. I mean, during that time, obviously, Game was on fire. You know what I'm saying? We're all just looking at this just massive success, and it's right around the corner. You know what I'm saying? Dudes from Compton, right around the corner from where we recorded at. So, we seen that and knew it was possible. So that's when you get the Kendrick Lamars, you get the Schoolboys, you get the Dom Kennedys, the Pac Divs. It's that paradigm shift of a different kind of music that was kind of cultivating during that time. Right. That didn't really take off until like the 2010s.
So you were never in a jerking crew?
Come on, I'm 6'5", bro. I'm just playing, you know what I'm saying? 250 pounds. Can you imagine me in some fucking skinnies, bro? Like, stop it.
I don't know, man. There's so many rappers that I like think of as these super tough guys, and then I realized at one point they were on that.
Nah, don't get it fucked up. Like, you'll still catch a homie in some salmon pink pants that'll blow your shit back. You know what I'm saying? So, but it's just an era. It was a moment in time.
Definitely.
But definitely, you wouldn't catch me in those skinnies. Stop it.
When did the football dreams die?
After high school, I fucked up my 12th grade year, bro.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just grade wise, obviously, at Gardena it was just, it was like a little college, everyone was just partying on the weekends, crazy. It was a crazy time. So, after like 2 years of success on the team, I figured that they're gonna float me, like, you know what I'm saying? We're gonna be good, and I guess I was used as like a study or whatever. They basically just threw the book at me and kicked me the fuck out after some stupid shit, and I had to go to a JC instead of going to like a D1, which was on my radar. So I went to West LA. I did a year there. Before the season started, I fucked my back up. We were at practice fucking around. And the coach had us doing tombstones the whole practice. When you're laying down on the floor, you get up and you just gotta go head on with the next player. So doing that shit for 2 hours, I'm saying,
that sounds
tired
terrible.
as hell. And at the end of, on the D line is what, maybe like 30 people on there, doing it one after another, tombstones. So like the last 3 or 4 guys, I kind of just like got tired, and I ended up fucking on my lower disc. So I got 2 herniated discs and 2 bulging discs.
Do they still let kids do that?
What, like the
smash into each other at full speed like
I
that?
don't
Seems
know.
kind of dangerous.
Honestly, I haven't been keeping up with the rules, but just seeing how NFL is just soft now, I can't imagine high school or college is any different. Seems like take the fun. They're telling you can't hit a certain way, and take the fun out of it.
Today, like a ex-NFL player, it came out that he just killed 5 people, and his dad is blaming it on CTE and shit
because of head injuries and stuff.
I mean, the more that shit like that happens, the crazier it looks for the whole entire thing.
I mean, when you just think of the concept of football, bro, you fucking gladiators going out there, for blood. So that's why the lifespan of an NFL player is what, 4 or 5 years, if that. So you get what you. But
you probably got off on a better career path, realistically.
I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason. I feel like the football thing kind of taught me structured discipline, being on the team, but the music thing kind of really taught me life. And I figure, like I said, I'm here for a reason. So I credit that to the universe working in my favor.
Definitely. So after high school finishes, you went to this junior college, and how was that? How did you take to that? And were you pursuing music at this time?
So music was a hobby of mine. Again, at the time, it was me, Schoolboy Q. He was Q Mizzle at this time.
But you were real close with him? Yeah,
real close. I met him, real close with him, recording, on a daily basis. You can find, his early shit. If you search, Q Mizzle, it's a bunch of trash shit that you're going to find.
And how confident were you that he had it?
And it's funny, in the early time, it wasn't really a confidence. It was just this is the guy that I knew that could rap the best. You know what I'm saying? He was the best person I knew that could rap. So again, at this time, it was more of a hobby. Like, it wasn't too much like, you know, yo, we're about to make $1 billion. It was like, yo, it's just taking us out the streets. It was giving us a curricular activity where we can go out and just kind of explore some creative shit.
Shit is so simple before you know all about the game,
Feel
right?
me, bro? And everything changes, and it's like, fuck, it's this brick wall of just knowing how to move around and
like
talk.
my mind instantly went to like you hanging out with him because you thought that he was gonna be a big artist, not just that was the homie and he was good at rapping. Yeah.
Again, at that time, it was all about the experience. Right?
My brain is polluted.
It's all about that experience, man. Like. And, you know, I figure, again, like I'm early on, one of the first books I read was called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
Oh, that's an amazing
Amazing book. I love Malcolm Gladwell as a writer in general. But in that book, there's this chapter, the 10,000 hour theory, that you got to acquire at least a minimum of 10,000 hours to become an expert in any field. And I kind of just look back at my start now and saying like, yo, like going back to everything happens for a reason. Like, being in there with Q and with whoever else early on, like just getting our hours, you know, even with us coming to TDE, like once we got there, it was a constant rap camp of just everybody trying to be better than each other, you know, all the producers trying to make better beats than each other. It was, you know, knives sharpening knives, you know what I'm saying? And that's where that notion of, you know, we got our 10,000 hours, you know?
That's crazy because when I first read that, it really makes you think like, well, what have I put 10,000 hours into? And I was like, well, I've definitely put 10,000 hours into like studying rap music, basically, and I've definitely put 10,000 hours into like reading and writing on the internet. Right. And I'm like, well, okay, that kind of helps me understand what I'm doing. All right.
Exactly, man. Subconsciously, man, people do shit like that, man. It's just, you know, put time into you know, just hobbies and things like that end up really turning into careers because it's a real form of love, like, you know. Definitely. That's what people got to strive for when they, you know, want to become their own business or you want to work on their own, is what do you love doing? What can you spend fucking 10 hours a day doing without no interruption?
And everything you do, just guide yourself in that direction of doing something that you like doing.
100%.
You know?
100%.
Okay, so you're in college, you're kicking with Schoolboy and shit. How does things start progressing from here?
On the music side, obviously I got hurt. And again, like me and Q were recording like just on the side after practice or on the weekends. So I get hurt and fucking I have to figure it out. Like what am I gonna do? The doctor's saying that I can't play ball no more. Right. Devastating, you know what I'm saying? First and foremost, very much devastating because being a big guy from the hood, like this is your way out, you know? So I just doubled down on my hobby, you know, and from there, you know, just got serious again, got better equipment, start really doing my research on people that I can admire or people that, you know, I looked up to in the same field, and really just fucking shot in the dark, you know, just took a leap of faith and just ran with it. Really?
Yeah. Okay, so what's that look like? Do you really start going in with Schoolboy, or were you like just sort of along when his shit starts blowing up, or how did that go?
So around this time, you know, again, Q is still, you know, he's still in the streets, but going to school because he loved ball too. And he's doing his thing on the side, so he had a few dollars in his pocket to record. So while I was out of, you know, I couldn't play ball no more, I was still heavy on the music. So, you know, he would come over to the studio after, you know, after practice, we'll link up and we would just work. Things dried up for him and we just had nowhere to record at this point because he was paying for studio time, you know, $150, $200 a day. So when it dried up, you know, there was nowhere for us to record. But at this time, I was really getting to know, you know, everybody at TDE at the time, which was, you know, Punch, Top, Dave Free, you know, K-Dot, Soundwave, you know, all the guys. So, you know, as I'm building a relationship and really spending a lot of time at this house where everybody's recording, which, you know, Top provided a home studio for us, I was like, okay, bet. You know, I'm working with an artist, which we have no place to record now. You know, I have access to the studio with a group of talented creators, which you can all learn from. I'm like, yo, like come to Carson, come pull up. You know, these is the cool homies that I'm fucking with. You know, let's see if we can, you know, let's see if you fit right in.
What was your perspective on TDE? Like how far along in them becoming a big deal were they at that point?
Because obviously in high school, I always knew about J-Rock. You know, J-Rock was bubbling in the streets. So like, you know, coming into the game, any type of success is huge success, you know, coming from the outside looking in. So, you know, me looking at TD, I'm like, yo, this is these group of guys that are really doing it. You know what I'm saying? Like they're local, they're getting to it. I'm seeing billboards of J-Rock's, you know, projects all over the city. I'm like, yo, like this could be a way where, you know, I can offer my services and as well, like, you know what I'm saying, I can learn a lot in this industry. So, you know, I took that leap and invited Q over there. And, you know, Q's thing, you know, he's from Hoover. So Q thing was like, you know, like, damn, these niggas from Bounty Hunters, these niggas from like, is it a setup? You know what I'm saying? He's just leery, like, I don't know how I can fit into this equation. You know, either somebody's from Compton or Watts, you know what I'm saying? And Q's all the way from South Central. So, you know, just luckily he trusted my instinct and he came by. And it was his record that Kendrick and Ab Soul was working on. He K-Dot at the time was working on. And, you know, I guess they were really testing Q and his skills and just threw him in the booth and they loved him and he never left.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. And so was there any kind of issues about where anyone was from? And did anyone give a fuck about where you were from? Or were they past that by that point in terms of being professional about it?
It was just at that respect level. Like, obviously, Top Dog, like, that was his house. So, like, if you come into that back house, like, you just don't be on no type of bullshit. You know? It's like when you come here, it's all business. It's time to work. Like, he didn't go through what he went through to be able to provide this studio for us to fuck it off.
Right.
So it was, he sat everybody down and was like, this is what we're doing. Like, we're gonna take it professionally. We're gonna go about it the right way. And it's like any issues, there's a set of boxing gloves right there. But it's always been love.
What was your viewpoint on Kendrick at that point, and like how far along he was and everything, and how talented you thought he was?
I mean, instantly very talented. That was like one of like my first tasks. Is Dave had sent me to go pick up these CDs from DJ Nick Beam. He used to print up like all these mixtape CDs back in the day. So I picked up these Training Day mixtapes and these J-Rock Watts Finest Volume, I think 2 or 3 mixtapes. And, those were the first times, or that was the first time I really heard of K-Dot, you know what I'm saying? And I'm just hearing this mixtape Training Day. I'm like, yo, who the fuck is that? It's going berserk. Definitely, if you haven't heard Training Day, go back and check it out. This was 2005 Kendrick. But I'm just listening. I'm like, yo, this man's just like so elevated, so advanced. Like just the flow patterns, just how he was rapping was completely different from what I was hearing at that time. So obviously I'm seeing the potential in what's going on, and I'm just trying to see how I can add my value.
Definitely. And so, how did they react to Schoolboy, and how did they react to you? Like, how did that connection like become solidified? And were they just like super impressed by his talent right away?
First, it was just like they, by me coming in and, at that time, Punch was doing all the engineering. He was sitting down, he was working on the business with Top and Day, but also, because there was no engineer on board, everybody wore multiple hats. That's where we learn work ethic and execution, is wearing multiple hats and playing roles if we need them to be filled. So, when I came in, and obviously I have my prior experiences from doing ringtones and, just kind of growing this field. I'm like, yo, like, just teach me the basics and let me run with it, So I think by me coming on board, it kind of alleviated a lot of time from Punch to be able to focus on business, but also it started for me to build the trust within a group of guys. Like, yo, Ali is really serious about being one of the top mixers, the top engineers.
Right.
He might not know it all right now, but his drive, his work ethic, I can see it. It's infectious. So, obviously, me mentioning Q and bringing him on board, they were open to it. It was still leery because we're still all young, like not really crazy success in the streets. We're still kind of playing a part in a lot what people were doing. So, it was a gamble. But like I said, he came over, fit right in. His personality, his music, just became this tight-knit family.
Definitely. So does that just begin a completely different era in your life where you're just sort of posted up in the house working for
100%
years?
I'm like, at this time, 18, 19? And,
you're still that young.
Still,
okay,
no structure, like, still wet behind it. You're still fucking up, like, you know what I'm saying? But, it kind of just gave me a purpose. Like I said, so many years of not knowing where I come from because of my family and how that's perceived with, Polish descent and, where is my black side of the family? I didn't really understand who my dad was. I didn't know my dad early on. So, now I feel like, boom, I really have a purpose now. Like, let me just take advantage of this opportunity. So from 1920, I cut all the partying out. I kind of just like went off grid, with my head down, sacrificed my early 20s, really to just perfect my craft.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So like, I lost a lot of friends,
really?
Girls, I ended up getting kicked out of my granny's house. So I moved into Top's house and, I'm sleeping on the floors. K-Dot, we're sleeping head to toe. Soundwave on the floor, Schoolboy sleep in the booth, and it was just game on,
Wow, so your grandparents were pissed because they thought you were just fucking up?
Fucking up, and I was fucking up, you know what I'm saying? And,
And everything else in your life?
And everything else, like going to jail, bro, like just
really?
not trying to get a job, just, this shit. I'm telling her about my dream of being a musician, and she's like, what? Like, when have you ever wanted to do music? When have you ever played an instrument?
Right.
And trying to explain engineering, it's like trying to explain hieroglyphs,
But Kendrick was like gonna be the next big rapper for quite a few years there before he became like the biggest fucking rapper. And was that kind of like this era of like
100%.
Everyone's talking about him, he's getting all these cosigns, but it just hadn't really exploded yet. And then like all of a sudden, like 2011 or 12 or whatever, it fucking explodes and like he fulfills the promise that everybody saw in him. 100%. It was pretty crazy.
100%. Like going from even before Kendrick Lamar, he was K-Dot and dropping Training Day. Even doing the collab album, it's called Do It Nigga Squad. It was a whole, a TDE compilation album. And then from that, Kendrick, he changed his name. He just had this epiphany, like, yo, I'm gonna go by my real name. And then from that, everything changed, from the music down to just everything. And it was like, yo, like, whoa. It was like everyone seen what was about to become.
Right.
You know, it was just making sure that we were prepared for that ride. You know.
Right.
You know, doing Kendrick Lamar EP, Kendrick Lamar EP, and then Kendrick Lamar OD, and then Section fucking 80 came and just like that shit like exploded. You know,
Right.
it was, you know, if you listen to that album Section 80 in the time to which it dropped, there's no other album that sounds anything like it. You know, and I think that's really what made him stick out in the herd, is like coming completely different.
Right.
You know.
And so how did things start to change in terms of like, you know, you guys are sleeping on the floor and shit, and like things must have to start switching up as people are seeing more success and stuff. Like, how does this all unfold?
Yeah, so success then was different to where success is now. Like, you know, back then it was really just blog success. You know, the Two Dope Boys, the Rap Radars, like, you know, that era. So we were getting that blog success. We're doing show, like, you know, the hip hop shows, and, you know, but it wasn't no money where everyone's floating off of, you know what I'm saying? Success really came after Section 80, and, you know, we go on this world tour, bro, off of this project, and from there it was just a chain. It was like a snowball effect.
Really?
A chain of effects from, you know, we was on tour with Tech Nine, actually.
Wow, really?
J-Rock was signed to Strange for a little bit through TDE, and then we went on tour. It was J-Rock, E40, Tech Nine, and all the Strange guys. And Kendrick was J-Rock's hype man.
Wow.
And then while on that tour, like, I'm getting a call from somebody at Interscope, like, yo, Dr. Dre wants to holler at Kendrick, and yeah. So I'm like, get the fuck off my line. I think it's a joke, right? Like, they're blowing me up. I'm like, somebody's pranking my phone. Like, it's probably one of the homies just, you know, bullshitting. And then somebody else, and then I forgot his name. Somebody else called me, and then it was like a real, like, hey, somebody from Interscope wants to talk to you. Can you please hold? And they're really breaking it down, like, yo, like, you know, when you get back, like, you know what I'm saying, we want to set up a meeting with Kendrick. So, you know, I relayed the information to, like, Dave and Top. And, you know, when we got home from that tour, you know, everything kind of just started getting into motion.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember that Dr. Dre co-signed, like, I forget if there was a show.
Yeah,
where
it was a show in L.A. I was DJing.
And Dre came out and basically said, this is the future of L.A.
Bro, Dre, Snoop, Corrupt. Like, this is like an iconic picture of, like, Kendrick just, like, balling, because it's like, that's like an emotional moment. Like, all this shit that we've been through to get to where we're at today, like, you know, and then finally getting that recognition from somebody like Dre, who, you know, obviously us being from the coast, we look up to, at, you know, put at such a high regards.
Right.
It was satisfying, to say the least. It was affirming. You know, it was like, damn, all this grinding and sleeping on the couch and stealing hot dogs from Albertsons and eating cup of noodles every day. Like, you know what I'm saying? It was all for this moment, you know.
Holy shit, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, Dre is just like co-signed so few artists that he hadn't directly signed.
Right.
Like, I mean, even including the artists he signed, he just does not throw his co-sign around at all. He's all about his brand, his quality, quote unquote.
Facts. So as like when Kendrick, you know, really, you know, when Top and Kendrick really solidified the deal with Dre, you know, it was time to, you know, get to mixing Good Kid. And one thing that Kendrick just made clear is like, yo, like, we're gonna do this, but, you know, I need Ali involved in the mixing. Not only because we already cultivated a sound when it came to Section 80, but also he understood my passion, into which I wanted to be the biggest fucking guy in this field. Right. So he really shot me that layup, like, yo, now you're gonna work with Dre and then learn, and, you know, like, indirectly, like, yo, go learn from this nigga.
Really?
So
and that's crazy, because like, I'm sure Dre has his way of doing things, and he's probably not super interested in dealing with new people
100%.
from the rapper or whatever.
100%.
Did you feel like this was going to be an uphill battle?
It was more intimidating because I didn't know how to. I'm still fucking wet behind the ears. I'm still like just entering. I'm like super low level, so I'm just under. Like, it was intimidating, bro. Like it was just like, it was just Dr. fucking Dre. Like, you know, how can I come correct and gain this respect? But instantly from the jump, it was just more welcoming, you know, like. And like you said, he has his own set way of doing things. I think it really made me who I am today, because from me learning his process, along with the process that I've already been cultivating, I'm able to fuse that together to create my sound, which I have today. So, you know, through mixing Good Kid, Mad City, he's really just guiding me, training me, showing me how to use this big ass analog board, and, you know, kind of just, you know, preparing me for what's to come next.
Definitely. Hey, what about that touring the world? Like, that must have been pretty fucking eye-opening for somebody who hadn't really been too many places prior to that, huh?
Bro, I wilded the fuck out. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, imagine just being like just early 20s, bro, like traveling the world and, you know, just meeting different people, like different It was a blur. You know what I'm saying? It was a blur, like, you know, but it was one of the best experiences ever. You know?
You go through so much of your life thinking that where you grew up is the world, and then all of a sudden you're in all these other cities, and it's just like, holy fuck, the world is so much bigger than I knew.
Facts. It puts everything into perspective, like, you know, like, for one, your problems are not as big as they are. And it just makes you reach for higher levels. You know, when you start seeing different shit, it inspires you a different way, you know? It inspires you a different way. I think that's why I'm like into teaching and stuff now, because I feel like opportunity is you know, it's like each one teach one. Like you got to always just give back what you've learned, you know what I'm saying, to those other diamonds in the rough. You know?
Yeah, and from having these conversations, that's what I realize, is that so many people who are successful at some point in their life, somebody sat down with them or took them around and brought them around shit and showed them how shit's done, because it can take you, you know, forever to figure out the business on your own, but somebody could really help cheat code your ass through that.
100%.
Yeah, because I see you do a shitload of like seminars and all kinds of like teaching stuff on your Instagram. What, how's that work?
So, you know, just a couple years back, 2018, you know, just even prior to that, I've always told myself, like, yo, once I get to a point in my career, you know, I want to be able to give back to those diamonds in the rough like myself. You know, the mission for me to get to where I am, it was brutal. You know, just people just pushing you away because they see your hunger and like, yo, this nigga might be a factor. Let me suppress him and shut him up. Or just people not taking me seriously because like how I look. People think I'm security first, not an engineer. You know what I'm saying?
The height is a little liability on that.
You feel me? Like, so it's like, dang, I'm gonna teach him how to mix and he might rob me. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what the fuck about to happen. So, but it was, you know, I figured like once I get to the point in my career where, you know, I could be that big homie, I could be that person that could really just show the next generation of sound where those landmines are. You know, by me hitting those landmines, I can kind of help these kids and the next generation maneuver around them, so their journey will be a lot easier. You know, that's my thing. It's like, you know, I look at it, if a lot of people help me on my come up, you know, there will be a lot of people like they could live through me in my career, you know, and they really can't. You know, I have more of a chip on my shoulder than anything. But by me being able to be vulnerable and open up to the youth and to the creators of tomorrow, you know, I can live through them, you know, rather than, you know, my legacy can live the next 100 years through the people I've helped along the way. You know, so that's big to me. Again, it's purpose, having a purpose, and you know, making all this money is cool and accolades is cool, but they're just things. Like what's gonna immortalize you? You know what I'm saying? And that's community and how you give back.
Definitely. So, okay, if you were explaining what you do to a total idiot, which I'm assuming you have to do from time to time, and you know, some people watching this are probably somewhere along that idiot spectrum. Explain what your job is, what you do, why it's important, and how it works, basically.
So audio engineering, there's 3 phases. You have the recording engineer, the mixing engineer, the mastering engineer. The recording engineer basically is the one in the studio with the artist. They put the beat inside the program Pro Tools, and they're recording that artist, getting the best performances from their voices, adding certain elements to kind of make things pop out, and just kind of getting the sound together for the artist as he's like recording these songs. The mixing engineer, and this is all in layman's terms, the mixing engineers basically take all of the elements from the recording engineer and from the producer. So they take the beat files, the kick, drum, snare, bass, and then take all the takes from the artist, the lead vocal, the backgrounds, the ad-libs, the chorus, and then they basically take that and throw it into a program and they mix it together, adding certain effects, reverb, delays, again, blending it all to create a final 2-track product that goes to mastering. And then the final product is mastering, where you take that final 2-track product and you add specific limiting and you normalize it to get it to the loudest potential peak to get it ready for radio.
Oh, okay.
So it's a multitude. I mean, it sounds difficult as hell, but you know, it's again, like you mentioned earlier, it's a part of the business that I think in 21 is more respected than ever. As many producers and artists are coming out really championing their engineers. Which I think is a great time to really just uplift the community by just, you know, showing, like you said, there is ways to be successful in this business without being a producer or an artist, you know?
Definitely.
Really showing like a dope part of creating a record, an intricate part in creating a record, which I think in today's time is vital.
And the more you know about the quality of a record, like when we listen to submissions on stream and stuff, a lot of times we'll be hearing a song and it's like, you know, maybe the melody sounds okay, maybe the artist's voice sounds okay, but because the production and the mastering and everything, or complete and total lack of mastering, probably it's just almost impossible for me to like judge the quality of the music. And I mean, yeah, so that's a big factor that obviously a lot of people don't have the luxury of learning that, but it's the kind of thing that if you do learn that yourself, it could be completely the difference between your song sounding like shit and your song sounding great, right?
It's like meeting like somebody for the first time, like meeting a girl for the first time. They look at your teeth and your fingernails. Like your first impression is like important. Jimmy Iovine said it in like the Defiant Ones documentary. You know, when he was coming up, he started as an engineer, Jimmy Iovine, and you know, the way he presented a product, the way he presented a song was important because before they listen to the lyrics, before they listen to anything else, they're gonna listen to how it sounds. That's what's gonna catch your ear first, and then everything else plays a part after the fact. So you know, a lot of artists, I know I know personally a lot of artists lose their shot, or a lot of artists just really can't get over that hump because their music sounds like shit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
There was I heard a few people point it out during the Gucci versus Jeezy battle that like Jeezy's shit was all properly mastered and shit and done in these professional ass studios, and a lot of the Gucci records that became huge viral hits just weren't ever really mixed or mastered. So when you hear it like now and you hear it with a proper system, it's like they sound like they were recorded on different planets.
You could hear hear the difference. Like it's clear as day, you know. And that's why like one of my missions obviously is just to push the problem of the industry. And the problem is that your music sounds like shit. And then my job is to create that solution.
Definitely. So if you were giving advice to some kid who's interested in all this shit, how would you tell them to start? Would you tell them to, you know, find a local artist or somebody that they can link up with to just begin practicing? Like, is there specific courses or anything that you would recommend online to get good at this?
What I would tell them is, first of all, before you look for courses or any other shit, like you got to be okay with fucking starving for a couple years to get good at this craft. You know?
Right.
A lot of people nowadays, you know, because they are successful engineers and they are, you know, people doing their thing right now, that it's a get rich quick scheme. Like this is the easiest way to enter the industry and create a name for themselves. That's not the case at all. You know, you got to actually develop a love for it. I think that's what breeds the longevity in the game. But then also, it's really just learning the fundamentals, like learning the terminologies and just learning as much as you can so you can enter these rooms and know what you're talking about. You know, I think a lot of engineers a lot of people coming into the game that want to be engineers today, like they don't have the sufficient information to really hold these conversations, and they get weeded out. They kind of miss their opportunities by doing too much too early.
Right.
You know, baby steps, learn what you need to learn, know the basics, and then gradually grow.
Definitely.
You know, I think that is important for any field of business. You know, it's just, you got to crawl before you walk.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I've seen artists like Young Thug in particular, like engineering his own shit, like punching in and then doing it at the same time. You ever like, is this like as crazy as it seems to me? Like it just seems like the most intensive thing to be doing all that work at once. Not
necessarily. I mean, and that's one thing about it's dope today is there's a lot of artists like Thug, like a Kendrick, like a Roddy Ricch, like these artists who went through those beginning stages starting as an engineer because they didn't have access to other engineers. So because they didn't have that access, they was like, yo, I got to play all hats. I got to, you know what I'm saying? So now they're in this apex, you know, time in their career. It's like, I could do it better myself because I know what I want my shit to sound like because I've done it in the early times, you know. So there's a lot of DIY artists that, you know, are taking control of their sound because at the end of the day, the artist knows exactly where they want to go sonically. It's up to the engineer to take them there. But if the engineer can't take them there, the artist can easily get in that driver's seat and pull off.
Definitely.
You know, so there's a lot of, you know, kudos to them. I know Alex Toomey does a lot of Thug stuff. Yeah. But, you know, as an engineer, it's important, you know, even for the artist watching, it's important to just understand how to express how you want your shit to sound. You know, that's how you build that relationship with the engineer. And your sound can grow from that because you guys have that relationship, you have that rapport, and you know how to communicate what you guys need from each other.
Definitely. Okay, so around that time, well, I'm assuming you guys are working for years and years on Good Kid, Mad City. Like, did you know that this was going to be as seminal a moment in the culture as it was? Like, how were you looking at it leading up to the release?
Man, Good Kid was different because, like, Good Kid, Mad City is really telling the story of all of us. Like all those stories we can relate to. You know, meeting up with a chick and then your car might break down and you in somebody else's hood. Or, you know what I'm saying, the homie trying to influence you to do some crazy shit. Like that was really telling a story for all the people who couldn't speak for themselves, you know? So it was so partial to me personally because I couldn't express myself, especially in that time, being insecure, you know, just still finding purpose, still finding myself. You know, I'm able to really now point at this album like, yo, this is what I'm going through. This is what I've been through. And, you know, there's light at the end of the tunnel, but, you know, there are those good kids in the Mad City. And this is how I can express myself is by relating to this music.
And there's all these classic rap albums, but I feel like that album in particular probably really spoke to like how a kid from LA felt around that time in a way that probably not any project for a long time before or after that had done.
Because there was no way to really express yourself, you know, but you're going to go on MySpace and, you know what I'm saying? Or at that time, there wasn't as many artists that are enabled to go and become artists now to express themselves like there is today. You know, artists now could just, you know, record a song on their iPhone and now they're expressing themselves. Now they can express themselves through music. At this time, there was none of that. You know, there was, you know, it's either the streets, sports, or you know, you can relate to something that you hear on the radio.
How many songs do you think you made for that album that didn't get used? a lot. You recorded for a
there's
long
a
ass
whole
time.
Good Kid, Mad City album that we finished mixing everything that just is never gonna see the day.
Really?
You know, before Dre, before anybody, it was a whole Good Kid, Mad City.
Wow.
Which I have on my drive, and I, from time to time, I might listen to them records because it was just that great. You know, even hearing that first project, it was like, yo, like, it's fucking over. You know.
Is that ever hard for you to like work on the stuff that you're so proud of, and then you just don't ever get to see the reaction from the people?
Not necessarily, because like I've already exhausted like all the plays while I'm mixing it or while I'm working at it. I'm hearing a song 1,000 fucking times. So by the time it comes out anyways, I'm already over it, you know.
But you ever find yourself like wanting to reference like, well, when Kendrick said this, and then you're like, oh wait, nobody knows about that besides me.
100%. Do that with every artist I work with, man. Like it's, they come back and switch verses. Like, it might be somebody dissing one person, and then they have a change of mind and be like, let me just take this out. And then,
really?
You know what I'm saying? It's all type of shit people are doing nowadays. But it's like an unwritten like responsibility of like just having everyone's music before it's released. Like it's a prideful moment, you know.
Definitely. Do you think a lot of people are kind of like in the engineering shit, but then they plan on using it as basically like a vehicle to transition into doing production or something different? Like, what made you really just want to be the greatest at this particular thing?
Like, I'm one of the guys that play my strengths. You know what I'm saying? And I know my weaknesses. And I'm not gonna pick up a mic if I know that's gonna die. That's gonna take me away from the time spent on doing this one thing. But to answer your question, 100%, a perfect example was like Blast. You know what I'm saying? Blast, it comes from...
You worked with him?
It's funny, I haven't worked with him, but we talk,
okay.
You know what I'm saying? I'm a big fan of Blast.
He's
like,
incredible,
incredible. Like, I love his music. And, instantly when I heard it, and it goes back to that first impression aspect to, hearing music. When I heard Blast shit, I'm like, this shit sounds polished.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It sounds like somebody's behind this that knows what the fuck they're doing. And when I found out it was him, I'm like, okay, it makes sense. It makes sense.
When we had that conversation, I'm like, I've had that conversation with like DJ Head, for example. Shout out Head.
Shout out to Head. Yeah.
He said, he's like, I haven't seen anybody like this since Ty Dolla $ign, where he does everything, right. And that's like super appealing to the label, and also just gives you a lot of faith that they're gonna be able to make shit that they really love.
100%. They're not depending on somebody, on one other person or entity to come in to make them. They're gonna put their all into it no matter what it takes.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing a lot of people that again come from the circumstances of not being able to have access to engineers. So by default they have to become that. It's just like David Banner. When David Banner used to speak in them old Scratch magazines and shit, and it's one thing that stuck with me is like he started making beats because he never had access to producers. So he became one of the greatest producers by necessity.
Definitely.
So I feel like that's being translated today's time in all fields.
Right. So your lifestyle must change like dramatically around that time, though, right? Like you must start getting way more money off these records, and then I'm assuming you guys aren't just like sleeping on the floor in the house anymore at this point. The tours must be on a totally different level, like, and you're just like along for all of this stuff. Like, what was this all like? And after all these years of struggling, it must have been fucking overwhelming.
It was very much overwhelming. Again, being someone who played multiple hats or wear multiple hats. During this time, now it's time for Kendrick to do shows. And there's no DJ, so I'm fucking completely terrified. I'm stage fright, you know what I'm saying? Again, couldn't hold a communication, couldn't look somebody in the eyes when I talk to him, just, you know what I'm saying, super just not confident. And I got to step up and be the DJ now.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have thought that you used to be like that. You come in here with a lot of enthusiasm and stuff. But
takes a lot of work, you know what I'm saying? A lot of fucking work. But again, at this time, like Kendrick needed a DJ. And what better person to do it than somebody who's in the studio and knows these songs, verbatim, line by line, second by second. So, I take this job, and again, that's part of the process that makes me comfortable with talking to crowds of people, is the fact that I go from being an introvert inside the studio to having to scream on a mic and turn up on the stage when I've never been that guy.
That's so interesting, though, because I feel like the DJ it's such a unique role, because you literally will have 20,000 people in front of you, and it's your job to keep this energy up at every moment that the artist can't be the one keeping the energy up. And that it's like when I see people who are really great at it, and I see them after a 40-minute set and they're drenched in sweat, I'm like, that is fucking crazy.
It's real, dog. Like, it's real. Like, DJing is an art in itself, man. Just being able to control that crowd with songs. It's so like doing that early on for Kendrick, it was frightening as fuck, but the job had to get done.
What's the most overwhelming audience you ever performed to?
Coachella, bro.
That's what I was thinking. It's got to be Coachella, right?
Coachella, bro. The first time, fucking 100,000 people, bro. Just a sea of people, and it's just me and Kendrick on stage, bro. No band, no nothing, bro. Like, I could have shat myself, bro. It was it was just a lot of energy, you know. Definitely took mad shots of J-Mo before I went out.
That's your beverage of choice?
At the time. I'm a tequila man now.
Oh, okay, yeah. I respect that. Yassi's like, yes. I've been in that position a bunch of times where, like, even seeing Thug perform in England a couple of years ago, and it's like, 50,000 people or some shit, and it's kind of like, this is pretty incredible that one dude rapping can command this audience.
Right.
Like, I know how big rap is, but it still is just kind of mind-blowing. Like, this is how big rap is that we're on the other side of the fucking world and they're going crazy like this.
That's a fact. I mean, I remember one of the craziest shows was at Glasgow, London. And we, Kendrick had this record, Cartoons and Cereal. I don't know if you remember the record.
Oh, yeah, I do, yeah.
Bro, that shit overseas, live, complete mosh pit.
That was the one Gunplay was on, right?
Yes, bro. Like, and that shit, like, when that shit was performed live, bro, it was, he ran it back three. It was just the last song. It was his encore record. He'll come back and it'll just come on with that static, with the, with the pitched vocal, with the lights dimmed, bro. Crowd would go berserk, bro. Like, mosh pits will open up. People were getting bloody. It was like, and I think that's really, like, just showed the performing aspect to creating these songs. Like, from that, creating records that really catch the ear of the people in those crowds. Once you can command a crowd, I think it's, you sell different type of music. There's a different part of being a performer once you really get those live performance interactions. Like, it's like a spiritual event. It's crazy.
How did that song come about? How the fuck did Kendrick end up working with Gunplay? Gunplay had Bible at the Dash at the time, and that was like, we all were like, this dude is fire. So it wasn't that surprising for them to work together at that time, but it is a pretty crazy like relic of that era.
So, like, Dot is like a guy, he's always on YouTube, especially during this time. Again, this is the Rap Radars, like, blogs are just like life, wake up 8 a.m. and just 10 tabs are open, just like, what the fuck is going on?
I miss that.
You know what I'm saying? It's a different time, bro. It's
now you can't pay somebody to look at a blog.
Facts, it's crazy.
NoJumper.com. Check out our blog.
But yeah, man. So he's somebody who's very, very intentional. Very, very intentional. Even with features. And at the time we were banging this song called Yams. Gunplay was Triple C. Gunplay Yams, straight Yams. Like, it was like. And we're just hearing Gunplay just like, bubbles in our cookie. Y'all niggas some rookies. Like, just his flow pattern, just his energy.
Wild,
like,
man.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that shit was just like infectious. And then when he had this record, it was more of like Gunplay's tone, his voice, like, everything would make the most perfect sense for this record. You know what I'm saying? That's what I mean by being very intentional with features. Like, I need Gunplay on this, saying this. You know what I'm saying? Because it's gonna fully tie the rest of the record together.
Right.
And and when that came about, bro, like, to this day is one of my favorite Kendrick records.
Yeah. Oh God, I gotta go re-listen to that.
Yeah, bro, please.
The other one I gotta ask about is the Fredo record.
Oh yeah.
How did that happen?
Crazy. So we're at Interscope. It used to be No Excuses. And again, Dot just be tapped in, like, and he just fucks with people. And Fredo, his people were just, what I'm saying, that whole, we were on Chief Keef, all that shit, mad early, like 2000, like, was that 11, 10, 12, like, it's super early, bro. And Dot just is like fans of dudes, like, if he fucks with you, like, like, pull up, like, let me show love and fuck with you. So Fredo came through one day, he had a record that he wanted to get, and Dot just did it, bro. And even Fredo was like, what the fuck?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
Performed
amazing.
it at Lollapalooza and everything.
Yo, that, like, what was the vibe like between them in the studio? It was unique. I mean, they seem like very different types of dudes.
Very much so. You know what I'm saying? Very much so. But it was more like Kendrick's like this real down to earth person. Like, people just think like, oh, he's a Kendrick Lamar. He's just, yada yada yada. But it's like, when you really sit with him, he's human as fuck. He's gonna crack jokes on you. You know what I'm saying? He's just like the most human person ever. And I think when Fredo came in, like, he didn't know how to, like, interact. Am I gonna be overly aggressive? Am I gonna be humbled? Am I gonna just not give a fuck? You know what I'm saying? So you could tell through the session that, Fredo's really just testing the waters and, where this is gonna go.
That record to me really stood out as proof that, like, slow, simple rap can be just as powerful as technical
100%,
rap. Like, just having those two styles side by side and having them both be like, I really genuinely love both parts of that song, and I can't say I really love one part more than the other. That's an important thing, because rap is in, like, a transitionary state and to an extent of the time.
And it's important just for new artists to, to not even new artists, artists in general, to really, that's how you stay relevant, is by tapping in with the youth. That's how you stay relevant, by understanding the sound that, is on the come up, is on the cusp of blowing. And, Dot is the master of that, knowing how to really, fuck with people, and is genuine in all sense of it.
Definitely. So what's like, at some point did you guys have the conversation of like, okay, we got one of these artists blowing up, a couple of the other artists seem like they're blowing up too, but we're gonna keep it TDE. Like we need to stay united. Like you can't, like, just because you're seeing the success, we don't want you to run off and start doing a bunch of other things. We have to stay as a unit.
Facts.
Was that conversation like actually kind of happening at some point?
I think that it didn't have to be said. You know, we all, you know, it's like, look, like when you're in the freeway, right? You know, you got 5 lanes on the freeway. You know, if you got 5 motherfuckers, you got 5 people on a team that all want to be head honcho, they're all in the same lane, right? That means that line is a straight line. Instead of everybody trying to perfect one part of the business in their own field, those 5 people spread across the lane and they all can move together as a unit. You know, building a team was most important. Building a squad is most important. You know, we would go up to labels and to go up to video shoots and fuck with people, and, you know, we wouldn't get the respect that, you know, we were demanding at that time because, you know, it just wasn't that at that time. So we had to go back to the drawing boards and create our own environment. Having our own producers, having our own managers, having our own engineers, having our own artists, you know, that way we can move as a unit and not have to worry about other inputs from other entities. You know what I'm saying? We can move because we got blinders on. You know what I'm saying? We know what our mission is and we're not going to stop until it's executed.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just about that team building aspect. You know, you can't, a lot of people, I'm self-made. Like, nah, like, you know, you can only go so far.
It takes a village to raise a child.
It takes a village, my boy. And,
yeah,
you know, I've seen it happen over and over and over again. So, like, it's validated for sure.
But, like, when I look through your Instagram, I see you working with so many fucking different artists. That's kind of amazing. Like I don't even know. I can start listing them off and ask how those relationships come about. But you definitely found yourself in a position where you're working hard enough that you can do a shitload of TDE stuff and then all this other stuff as well?
Man, at that transition phase myself, it was like 2017. I was doing Divine Feminine for Mac Miller. I was doing Oxymoron for Q. I was doing Prima Donna for Vince Staples. I was doing Danny Brown Atrocity Exhibition.
Wow.
And I was doing YG's, the YG album. And I was spreading myself hella thin, you know. I'm at this point in my career where, like, damn, like, I've gotten to this point in my career where people are now acknowledging my work and they want a piece of it. They want me to add my 2 cents to their record.
Really?
So I'm still doing all the TD stuff, but I'm finding time or I'm making time to try to spread myself thin and do everybody. Because how can I turn these artists down?
And all these artists, are you, like, determined to be in the studio with them during the recording process as well? They're not just passing it to you afterwards?
So I got to spend, there's not enough hours in a day for that.
Right.
So I hit a brick wall, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Just like, I'm staying up late, finding ways to stay up late. And I just hit a complete brick wall, bro, and just like was deteriorating, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know when you just spread yourself too thin and you just kind of just lose your mind. Like there was no sleeping, there was, you know, no me time. And, you know, this was a pinnacle time in my career because I hit a brick wall and I fell hard, you know what I'm saying? But it wasn't until taking that step back and really, you know, going to my mental health and really taking time for myself and rebuilding myself, I couldn't understand what I was doing. You know, if you look at my credits from like 2017, from 2013 to 2017, and then 2017 to now, there's a dip in that year because I was just out of it. You know, just not there. You know, if that makes sense. Yeah. So that was like a real pinnacle moment in my personal career because like it was either gonna kill it. Like I'm just gonna like completely ruin relationships. No one's gonna want to fuck with me. You know, I'm not making deadlines because I'm spread too thin. And you know, I'm popping pills. I'm just doing a lot that you know can just like completely kill my career. And then you know when you hit rock bottom, you have no way to go up. So you know, I kind of just boot my shit up and you know just hit the ground back running and kind of revamp everything.
So is it just are you a lot more selective in who you'll decide to work with at this point?
100%. It's just like I got to the point to where all money isn't good money. Like. You know, I'm grateful enough that I had a successful career to where I'm not thirsty for every project. And I have to be very intentional because, like, I understand that as quickly and unknowingly I was headed down a dark fucking path, it can happen again if I don't take care of myself. Right. So I just try not to put nothing material before, like, my own mental.
I saw you on the Rap Radar podcast back in the day, and you were talking about working on Nipsey's project, and I think it was probably, like, less than a year before he passed. How did you start working with him? And I mean, I guess we can get to the unfortunate ending to working with him, but how did that relationship start?
Man, it started like 2010.
Oh, okay.
When Nip was like signed to Cinematic, to Johnny Shipes and them. Right. You know, obviously from LA, you know, everyone heard of Nipsey. And at the time, J-Rock was really doing his thing. So it was like, red and blue. You know what I'm saying? It was like Nipsey and J-Rock. So we go on. Game goes on the LAX tour, and then he puts Nipsey and J-Rock on support. So that tour was the first time. It's 15 of us. It's me, Kendrick, J-Rock, B-Dog. Like, it was all the homies just in a 15. It was 12 homies in a 15 passenger with luggage, just following Game's tour bus across the country.
Wow.
And Nip was on that tour as well. And during that time, it's like we really got to know each other because we have we're in fucking Maine fighting. You know what I'm saying? Literally in Maine, like fighting homies because Game is taking over like people's like VIPs. And we're just all brawling together and like just creating this unity on the road. Like, this is like LA. Like, we're gonna move as a unit.
All these LA dudes on in a van,
bro. What?
And like you know how big these personalities and egos are. That's just like hard to even fathom. And you're in Maine.
Yeah, out of all places, Maine. You know
I grew up like a couple hours from Maine. Full disclosure, so I'm very aware of this. Yeah.
So fucking, that was the first time we really had a relationship, and just being in the circuit. Being in New York a lot with J-Rock when he was doing, when he was really bubbling in those early times, and just on the same grind. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like on tour. When you look at the thing with the names who's on tour, you see the artists behind him and stuff. So we're all just moving as a unit, kind of chasing each other. And then fast forward some years, he's still working, doing his thing, and then he just hits me. I'm in New York again, and he calls me like, yo, it's time, like Victory Lap. And I get to LA. It was the first time that we've worked with each other. We've known each other for years, but yeah, the first time we worked with each other, and we started Victory Lap, and it was a long 3 months. We were all going through shit. We all down there lived at the studio fucking daily, day in, day out, just finalizing this album. Me, Nipsey, Mike and Keys, 1500, fucking everybody, man. It was a moment for sure.
Right. Definitely. And I mean, yeah, that must have been absolutely terrible for you losing them. What was that like?
Yeah, it was surreal, bro. Because we literally was just with each other. We were celebrating the Grammys. It was me, YG, Nipsey, and like we were at Catch and just like celebrating. It was just like a surreal fucking moment.
There's like a really epic photo on your Instagram of you guys all like you're standing on the couch and shit. You're all together, and you look so happy, and it's just. And even you see Jeezy right there. It's
right.
Like pretty crazy photo, man.
You got to think, like, you know what I'm saying? We've all seen the hustle from, like, the early 2000s. And now we celebrate Nipsey's, Grammy nomination. And it's like a real, like, damn, like, we all, you know what I'm saying? Even with YG, you know what I'm saying? Like, I remember YG from his AIM account, Chubu Mipito. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we all just go back. We all were on the grind together. And it's like, for everybody to reach this level of success, it was like, yo, like, it's a great feeling, and for that to happen, and especially where it happened at, it was just like what the fuck, like ultimately it was like, dang, for one, you're just not safe anywhere, and two, it was like what, like what the what, so it was hard to accept for a long time, very hard to accept, but yeah, man, it was crazy.
And you did the record that he did with Jay-Z that just recently came out?
Yeah, off the Judas and Black Messiah soundtrack. Shout out to Archie Davis, brought me in on the project. But it was, it was one of those like crazy moments because just the sonics of the song, it just sounds like a victory lap. It sounds like, you know what I'm saying, like we're here, like the Rocky, like on top of, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's like, in my mind, how I looked at it, like the mission's complete, but like you weren't here for it. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, it kind of made me look at it in perspective, like, damn, like he really served a way greater purpose than like anybody can really fathom, because like the impact he left behind, the impact he left behind was just enormous. It got. I can't really. It's hard to really explain, man. It's like some full circle, like just. It just doesn't make sense, bro. Like, it's just crazy.
Was there a different feeling when you're working on a record like that, of that enormity, that having Jay-Z on it and having Nip after he passed, and just like how crazy it is that this song even exists? Like, was it a somewhat emotional experience for you to be working on it?
100%. It was more of like like we're closing this chapter out, like how we started type shit. You know what I'm saying? It was more of like a celebratory like celebratory type of moment, like, you know what I'm saying, like, but just personally, just working on it, just hearing his voice again on the song, a new Nipsey verse, like it was it was soothing to me. You know what I'm saying? It almost it gave you a false sense of like everything's okay. Like, you know what I'm saying? Until it turned off.
Definitely. What was your introduction to Mac Miller like, and how much do you work with him?
That was my dog, man. Man, we fucking lived at Encore Studios doing Divine Feminine for fucking 2 months, bro. Like, even before that, we called him the sixth member, or the fifth member to Black Hippie.
Wow.
Because, he just fell right in, just this young kid that, would just come to the sessions. Fucking, this is when Blue Slide was the biggest thing ever, right? And he's fucking pulling up just dirty little white kid that's just like got a gold rollie on that's just funny as hell. Like, just crack jokes like he's one of the homies. And, yeah, man, just during that time, that was the time I was really going through a lot personally. We both were, just he was, we had to stop mixing the album because he had to go to rehab.
Really?
So we took a whole month pause, and he did that. And, I would go and just bring him lunch on every other day. And it was more therapeutic to me than anybody can ever imagine, because I needed that break. You know what I'm saying? During that time, like I mentioned, doing everybody's album, his was the last album that I had to work on before this whole fucking mound of work kind of was finished. And I needed that break because I was just hitting that edge. And, just being able to just talk to him and see him with a clear mind, it showed me where I needed to be,
Right.
So, but he's like, man, it's one of the most genuine dudes ever, man. Mac, like, that one hurt me harder than anything, just because I knew what he was dealing with demon-wise, and the struggle, and and just where he was at, man. That one probably hurt me the most.
There's a lot of people that like end up getting wrapped up with drugs as they into the music business, whether it's just to stay up late or just they think that they need to get fucked up in the studio to be creative or whatever. I think that's like important that you even mentioned that was something that you dealt with. Yeah. Probably a lot of people deal with the same thing,
100%, man, because it's pressure, bro. Like, it's a lot of pressure on, like, especially nowadays, social media, bro. It's a lot of pressure on becoming something that really you're not, or pressure to like keep this image of keep the image of what the masses put you. Think of you, and it's, it can lead to a dark tunnel, man. We've been seeing it over the past couple of years. A lot of people just dying and just not being healthy. And now that I have a daughter, it's like it's not about me anymore. And it's important for people to know that, for one, mental health is real. Two, you can't hide it by doing drugs. You can't sweep that shit under the rug by doing drugs. You got to really face it. You have to really face them demons, and I'm sure really come out, because you could really lose that battle. Like, we're seeing people lose it on a daily basis.
How old's your daughter?
She's 4. She's gonna be 4 in May.
And that's changed you a lot, I was saying.
100%. I can't fucking stay up to 5 in the morning and come. And she's up at 6, hitting my eyelids like, "Are you up?" Like, "I'm up now, motherfucker, down."
That's crazy, because when you first start getting in the game, you pretty much have no choice. You got to just be there until the artist wants to leave, right?
You feel me? So it calmed me down. I was one of the engineers that loved getting to the studio at 10 at night, and work all through the night and go home at 9 in the morning. Like, completely switch my schedule, bro. I work at 11 a.m. now, be done by like 9, 10. And it just made me more focused. It made me more creative, and because I'm clear-minded now. I have time to rest. I go home and I'm grounded with my daughter, where I have a way to disconnect. When some people, even when they leave work, they're still succumbed in emails or text messages. Like, I could fully disconnect. And like I mentioned earlier, everything happens for a reason. I think she is the reason why I'm embarking into this new journey in my career.
What's the new journey?
The new journey, well, I mean, it's still the same mission, still trying to, just give knowledge and information to the next generation. But through that, like I mentioned the workshops that I do.
Yeah.
By me doing that, I was able to really tap in with early creators and people who potentially are the sound of tomorrow.
Right.
But as I'm doing that, I did something that I'm very proud of, which was, ask all of our attendees, as a small business, I look at myself as a creator, as a small business, because I still, MixedByAli is a brand. I do my taxes, it's a business. And as a small business, like, what are you all dealing with? What are some of the antiquated business models? What are some of the problems you are dealing with? So after a year of traveling the world, we come home and, I take all of this R&D, all these notes, and I'm reading them, and I'm like, yo, these people, these creators around the world are dealing with some of the same shit that I'm dealing with, whether it's tracking payments, whether it's, getting booked instantly, whether it's communications, file transfers. And, I'm like, yo, like, we could build a platform to automate all this, you know? So that's when this whole moment of transition in my career and everything I've done up to this point kind of made sense in a way where I can give back to the masses without me either traveling the world. I can give back through helping them kind of cultivate and create their own businesses. So, you know, we started Engineers. Like I mentioned earlier, Engineers was simply just an Instagram where I gave, you know, motivational tips. I gave techniques that I've acquired over the years. And then we moved on to workshops. But, you know, as everything grew, our community grew. And, you know, we were able to really give this solution to a problem, which is one part of the music industry that has not shifted since the beginning, you know. Because of the independent music sector in today's time, everything has evolved from selling beats, getting your stuff uploaded to distribution. Everything has changed. But the one thing that today drives the industry, and that's how engineers are conducting their business. So, you know, me being me and the type of guy that I am and, you know, just trying to find a way to create solutions for the problems, I feel like we've done that by creating this platform, Engineers. You know, Engineers essentially is a platform. Engineers provides solutions for independent creators to basically streamline the business and manage their business via end-to-end business management solutions. And we've been live for about 4 weeks now with the actual product, and it's been going incredibly well.
That's dope.
Yeah,
because it's such a world that is so complicated that you could like almost never figure it out on your own. So like it's the ultimate thing where somebody who is willing to lean in and help you out if you're early on in like understanding this shit, it could just be so unbelievably valuable. So I think it makes a lot of sense.
100%. And even like a lot of the issues that I've dealt with, fucking tracking payments, taxes, you know, just being on time and paying my taxes, you know, coming into the game, being self-taught. Like no one broke it down to me. Like all this money you're making is not all yours. Right. You know, so it's creating an infrastructure, creating a system, and creating a platform to really, you know, help these independent creators and these small businesses really sustain their business.
It makes sense. I mean, I heard about Bandman Kevo making like hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on OnlyFans just selling financial literacy advice. I mean, there's clearly a lot of young people who are creative or involved in rap or whatever who have like a real eagerness to understand the business side of things, but they want to hear it in a voice or like a context that they feel like they can relate to, you know?
And that, not even just that, a lot of these artists are really taking ownership into their own hands to where I can still have access to the same people the labels have access to, but don't have to give up a big percent of it. I can do this shit on my own. So giving access is one of the big things that we provide.
That kind of information is what the label has that they want you to think you can only get if you go to them.
The goal is to even the playing field. You know what I'm saying? Nowadays in 21st century, you know, with all these platforms being created on a daily basis, there's still nothing cultivated towards one unrepresented business. You know what I'm saying? So a platform created for engineers by an engineer who still deals with these problems, I feel like we've created that social solution, which is Engineers.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think that's really dope.
Thank you.
A lot of people, I even saw a YouTube video, I don't know if it came up in your recommended, but the YouTube video is basically like what happened to Black Hippie, or like why the Black Hippie album never came out. From your perspective, was there a time period where that could have happened and then it just didn't really happen during that time period and then people kind of moved on?
It was happening. It was happening. We worked on hella records. But then everybody's individual success started going crazy.
As usually happens.
You know what I'm saying? Like at that time, Q wasn't really taking off, you know, and then he dropped Setbacks. You know what I'm saying? You know, and then Soul was doing his long-term series. So, you know, as we're like, okay, boom, like, you know, this is how we can kind of bring more love to everyone's like kind of, you know what I'm saying, how we can get more eyes and ears on all the artists. They start getting their own like movements and traction within the community in the industry. So it was just a natural thing of just wasn't no fucking time. There wasn't no time. And, you know, obviously things just got busier and busier and busier and busier. And then real life came and people started having kids. People started, you know what I'm saying, really start taking time for themselves and only blocking out specific time for sessions. And it just ultimately, it just the timing of it just didn't line up.
I hear you. It feels like part of like the TDE ethos is very much like quality over quantity, to the extent where like you might have one of these guys be your favorite rapper and you're not gonna hear an album from him for like 3 years.
Quality over quantity, facts, man. You know, it's harder nowadays because, you know, there's so much music dropping and it's like almost just dropping music into like a black pit and seeing what survives, you know. But you know, that's one thing that got us here is quality, and it's one thing we try to keep that integrity. We just, you know, all the artists involved with TDE is really just, you know, making sure when they drop it's gonna be right. You know, it's like going back to, you know, saying like I was watching The Social Network, that Facebook show or that movie show, and it, you know, it's one thing that Mark Zuckerberg said in there, and he was talking about, the impression as soon as the server goes online one time, your reputation is shot. And it's the same thing. As soon as you drop a shit project, your reputation is really, is shot. It puts more pressure on you to really deliver on the next album and the album after that. And that pressure could, can be detrimental to, a lot of things.
It's such a weird dynamic where, like, when you're unsuccessful, you can put out as much music as you want, but then once you're really successful, you're in like a prison of your own success where you just, because if Kendrick dropped an album and didn't properly roll it out, promote it, make sure that it was the quality he wanted, and he sells a lot less than he sold last time, people look at it. It's
more of a numbers game. That's what I'm telling you. That the whole blog shit was like, that whole era was like, that's something that I wish would come back, because that really. It was a different culture. It was a different, just time in music.
It wasn't all about being, selling well or whatever. That was very much an era in which, you could just like a lot of stuff and you didn't really have any way of knowing how popular it was. It was just people seemed really genuinely excited about music. Yeah.
I remember, man, just the Weekend trilogy, all the House of Bloom shit was going through those circuits, and all the early TDE stuff. It was just a crazy. It was a fun time. It was a real fun time.
That's a fact. Yeah. So you took over an old Death Row studio, and that's where you're working out of now?
Yeah, man. Like I said, I've had an amazing career. Thank you. I'm grateful for. Just the fact that I was, trained by Dre, and the West Coast music being really the soundtrack to my whole life. It kind of getting to this point. I'm one of those guys who, everything happens for a reason, right? I'm chill because I understand it's gonna fucking work out some type of way. And how this place kind of just fell in my lap, man, it just affirms that everything happens for a reason notion. It's crazy. So, I'm getting calls from a friend of mine, Mac McNeil, and he's like, yo, I ran across this studio that, I think you would like. Mm-hmm. And at this time, I'm not in the fucking market for a studio. For one, I know there's a lot of just variables when it comes to building a room. It's, the materials got to be right. The floor and the electrical got to be clean. It's a lot of moving parts. So I'm throwing it to the left. I'm not really, paying it no mind. And one time he's just fucking nagging the shit out of me. And he's like, I'll bring some weed for you. I'm like, fuck it, I'll come smoke. So I pull up to the studio, and then he's walking me through the building. I'm like, yo, this shit is it's old, bro. It's going to be too much money to put together. I'm straight. And then he finally tells me, man, I thought you would have liked it because it's the old Death Row Studios. I'm like, what, motherfucker? Why didn't you start with that? I would have, you told me that when you called me, I would have took it over the phone.
So that helps the vibe that that Suge was sicking a dog on somebody in there at some point or something.
There were some fucked up shit that happened in that building, but it's more of a full circle moment for me, not more than just oh, I got a piece of history. That too, but it's more of damn, I'm really following this man's footsteps. And being so young, bro, owning this facility, it's it's just a dope feeling. It's like a clubhouse to me right now. State-of-the-art equipment, bro. Anything you could ever think of for a recording studio, we got.
So when you work with artists now, are you trying to get them to pull up on you more often than you're trying to, go to their spot?
It's no try. They pull up. It's even before I had the room. The relationship I had with artists, which is very important. They want to come hang out. My sessions are not just we hang out, we talk. We might take a 2-hour smoke break. We're gonna vibe and. That's how I know if I like you, if I could sit there and be with you for 10 hours without having to talk about music. Could we just vibe and talk about life? That's what I like. So now that I have this facility, it's natural. I got homies pulling up just to come watch a movie or chill, So, I want to make No Name Studios, really the pinnacle of sound in Los Angeles. I want to franchise it over time, No Name Miami, No Name Atlanta,
Yeah.
But for the time being, it's really just for the first time able to have my own facility, and have a vertically integrated business model. Instead of me having to book and rent another studio to work, I got my bookings there and I got my work there. So, and because we have the startup, we have engineers now, we're hiring developers, we're hiring a full staff now. So now I can have everything housed under one roof.
Definitely. Do you aspire to find any talent and sort of do the whole bringing an artist up from zero to nothing or to something on your own? Is that something you're thinking about?
So it's funny you say that. It recently happened just randomly. I've never had any just inklings to start a label or to manage artists. I've always seen that it was just pressure and there's too much dealing with personalities. But because of COVID, we had to stop doing our live workshops, right? Mm-hmm. So that, I did a deal with Twitch after that.
Saw that.
Yeah. So for me doing the deal on Twitch, I got into doing a lot of music and community building initiatives with giving away, a mix of mine costs upwards of $10,000 per song. So I do things where I have independent artists from around the world submit songs that we play on Twitch, and I have the community pick out the best top 10 songs of that week.
Really?
And then I go through 4 weeks of doing that, and then we end up finding one artist where I can give a free mix to. and this one artist that kept fucking winning every single month.
Really?
Every month. So I'm listening to songs, and the people in the chat are fucking with him, and the songs were infectious. He ends up winning the competition. His name is Malik Moses. You know, I fucked with the vibe so much. You know, we flew him to LA from New York. He came out, we clicked like a little brother of mine, you know what I'm saying? And we ended up doing a deal, and now we're working on a project just by meeting him on Twitch. You know? So we're literally, after this, we literally have a music video to head to that we're shooting to. So yeah, shout out to Malik Moses, man. I'm super excited for him.
That's a crazy story.
Working on an EP now, produced by Terrace Martin, Soundwave, Monty Booker, Groove, Simon Says, mixed by me, of course. So, you know, yeah, randomly that came into my life, and we're almost done with that project, so be on the lookout for that.
Well, you have a great story right there if everything works out.
Yeah, so yeah, obviously, yeah, Twitch loves it, so they're gonna get behind it, and you know, I'm excited to really be in this position and really helping new artists from the ground up. I've helped tons of big artists kind of develop their sounds and help them get to where they are, and this time I could really do it from the ground up with somebody who's a part of the squad.
Definitely. Okay, and so just for the record, everything that you mix or engineer or anything, you end up getting some percentage of the money from that song. So you basically like is every month or every, I don't know how, if it's quarterly or whatever, when you get these checks, is it a very nice time to be MixedByAli when those come in?
It's the music industry has treated me very well.
But you're not like some crazy flexing type of dude. You don't choose to spend your money in that way or anything.
I try to, you know, I went to that phase. I'm not gonna act like I haven't. Like early on, obviously, no fucking economic training, no financial training. I blew a fuck ton of money. But now older, bro, like I have a daughter. Who am I gonna impress? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, I got, you know, I have nice things and things that I enjoy, but it's more of like, now it's like longevity. Like, what can I create that I can give my daughter where she doesn't have to go through this bullshit later on? You know, so it's more about just being more intentional, being smart, and, you know, being able to create opportunities for family and friends. And, you know what I'm saying? Just, I've reached this pinnacle in my career where I can really help people. And, you know, that's what I really want to do, you know, and you know, I'm grateful to have the career and have, you know, all these things to be able to do that. And, you know, I'm trying to day by day.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, man.
Anything else that you're aspiring to do in the near future, or anything that the audience out there might not want to know about? How do they follow you on the Twitch thing? I feel like they'd be interested in winning that.
Yeah, twitch.tv/MixedByAli, MixedByAli. I'm very excited about our engineers platform. You can go to engineers, ENGINEEARS, like engine ears. That's the Instagram. Engineers.com is the website. I just want to thank you for having me, bro. Like I said, I've been a fan. I've been watching for a long time, and, you know, just I'm grateful for the opportunity.
No, for sure. I mean, I think that everything you've accomplished to the people out there is just you know, it's like people understand what being a producer is at this point. I think people understand being a rapper. There's a lot of different ways that you could try to make yourself useful in this game, because there's a lot of dope-ass talent that needs your exact service. And 100%. If people out there can kind of train themselves to be able to provide that, it's a dope-ass lane, and you've clearly built like a big-ass life and business off of it, and it's pretty amazing, man.
Man, thank you for that.
Yeah. MixedByAli.
Fuck with your boy. Shout out to Adam.
No Jumper. Coolest podcast in the world. Check us out on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes. Like, comment, subscribe. NoJumper.com if you want to support. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, all good.